Thank you for joining XR which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted now to have with me Mr. Tibor Merey, who's the managing director, partner of Boston Consulting Group, which is one of the world's largest and most prestigious management consulting firms. He's the co-member of BCG's technology, media and telecommunications and marketing, plus the sales and pricing practices. So Tibor, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Why don't we start with the metaverse? Because there's so much hype around it and there's so much haziness around it. I would love you to bring some clarity on metaverse.
Thank you very much, Eddie, and thanks for the invitation. As you were mentioning the word metaverse, I think to enter the metaverse, this term is not new. The first time this term was coined is actually already 30 years back in Neil Stephens's book Snow Crash, and it consists of these two parts. Meta, which stands for beyond, and verse coming from universe, so a universe beyond our physical world. Now, what he describes in his science fiction book is essentially a world where through headsets, people can enter a world where they can interact in 3 dimensions with other people, and where they can trade with digital currencies and have assets and visit different environments. And what we see today is that actually this is becoming reality. So what used to be science fiction is becoming a reality. And we see more and more use cases where you can have experiences in virtual spaces in 3 dimensions, but you can also do that in connection to the physical world. And we see that more and more happening as we speak.
Right. You mentioned, the word meta and verse and how it came out from Neil Stephens's book. And now he painted a very dystopian picture of what the metaverse would be. But we are saying there's this metaverse, this culmination of a physical digital world, which could, will open up huge opportunities for businesses as well as consumers. What happens possibly maybe 50 years down the line when this becomes really open, decentralized. We don't really know where it could go, whether it could be a utopian or a dystopian future. You mentioned that in the metaverse, the underlying economical layer would be virtual digital assets, these cryptocurrencies. Now, along with metaverse, people are talking about this transition of us transitioning from the Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. Could you kind of explain again what Web 3.0 is and the underlying economical layers of the cryptocurrencies, the tokens and NFTs?
Absolutely. So there are these different buzzwords flying around, right? You have Web 3.0, you have crypto, you have augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverse, all these kind of buzzwords. Now, when we researched this as BCG, we came up with a framework where we say, in the end of the day, we are talking about 3 different types of technologies which are emerging at the same time. On one side, you have this Web 3.0, crypto, blockchain, NFT world, which essentially is, as you said, the transition from Web 2.0, which is essentially already the second iteration. So for maybe the listeners out there, Web 1.0 used to be read-only. Some of us who have some white hair like me, they might remember Web 1.0, where you could essentially only visit websites. You couldn't do much there. With Web 2.0, we entered the world of social media, where you could read and write. You could post comments, you could post videos. That's the world we live in today. And with Web 3.0, we are introducing the component of decentralized digital asset ownership. So you can really own digital assets, like, for example, cryptocurrencies, but also non-fungible tokens, which mean unique digital assets that are sitting on the blockchain. So this is one world which is happening right now. The second world is the world of immersive technologies, like augmented reality, overlying digital objects into the physical world through semi-transparent glasses, and virtual reality, which means fully immersive experiences. These 2 things are actually becoming one. So the newer type of headsets, they are capable of mixed reality, so switching seamlessly from a augmented reality to a virtual reality and vice versa. And then the third type of technology is what we call meta worlds. So persistent platforms where you can meet play, interact with other people. And some of these worlds, they come from the gaming side, like Fortnite or Roblox. And some others, they are already sitting on top of blockchain, like the Sandbox or Decentralization. And so these three areas, they are emerging at the same time. They are still quite independent. So the people that are on Roblox are not necessarily the ones that own cryptocurrencies and are not the ones using headsets. But we see more and more of this converge and kind of becoming this vision of a metaverse.
Right. So you mentioned, for the metaverse, the Web3, there's three different layers. The first is going to be Web3, the cryptocurrencies, the NFTs, the decentralized digital asset ownership is going to be the underlying economical layer. What is going to make you experience this world is going to be augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, and so on and so forth. And the lines are being blurred because it's no longer just a virtual reality or augmented reality headsets, because these are now becoming one, which I think is a very profound thing, because I think it's not just AR, VR, MR. The way the technology is converging, I think everything is converging, and then maybe, like you said, becoming one. When technology becomes one per se, for example, when we don't talk about the phone as a technology, it's got the underlying, like an AI built into it, and so many different layers, but we don't call it a technology. And once all of those converges, the value that it opens up for a business and consumer is going to be humongous. And then you mentioned about the meta worlds, like the persistence platforms such as your Roblox, Epic, and so on and so forth. Once it all converges, we'll have the metaverse, and it will open up benefits. Now, Boston Consulting Group. Now, how deeply are you vested in metaverse Web 3.0? What does metaverse Web 3.0 mean to you? What's the opportunity over there? And how has BCG helped customers with the metaverse Web 3.0? And maybe you could share a few examples and works that you've built.
Very happy to. I mean, this is really at the highest level of our priorities. We are talking about nothing else as an entire revolution of the internet, the same way as we witnessed the shift from Web 1 to Web 2. And this is why we see now really a big priority for us amongst many lines. I mean, of course, it is at the core of what we do. We help our top clients, the top corporates around the world, with strategic projects. And this cannot be more strategic than that. You really, like in the 90s, when every company had to think about what does the internet mean for me, it is another moment of truth in the strategy development of companies to say, what does this mean for me? And do I want to become a builder of the metaverse, which is highly relevant for our telco, tech, and media companies? But how do I adopt the metaverse? And this is relevant for every company. But the other thing is, beyond strategy, we have built now multiple entities that are building stuff at BCG. So one of these entities is Digital Ventures, where we build entire businesses. And there we are starting to build out cohorts of architects, of engineers, of 3D developer, Unity designer, Solidity developers that are actually building stuff for our clients. And that is, I think, what excites me even more, is that we are no longer just creating a strategy, but really helping our clients extract value and are building businesses together with them.
Lovely. How cool is that? Because I guess, being the world's largest firm comes with a lot of plus points, because you have the access to build these things. But I think what is a greatest leverage is accessing these young minds, these entrepreneurs, these startups who don't function in an hierarchical manner, and they go beyond the structured functioning of a traditional legacy firms. I hope this is, I mean, you don't take it in this thing, but I think the young blood, the young generation, the startups, the way they move forward, the way they create businesses are so really awesome. Now, would you like to talk about some of the, like you mentioned, the true ventures, the cohort that you're building? Through it, what are the problems that you have solved? Maybe some solutions that you have built with Web 3.0 Metaverse?
Very happy to. I mean, as you will understand, we we cannot talk openly about all of our projects. There are, however, a couple of examples that we can talk about. Before I get into the specific examples, I think you mentioned a very crucial point. It is about the use case. Yeah. So I think what I also want to just mention is oftentimes people come to us and say, oh, I want to do something with NFT, or maybe they have even been approached by some agencies that you need to do something with NFT. But then I think we also try to take a step back and take them back to the actual strategic imperative and say, what is it you actually want to achieve, right? Because only because we now have new hammers with crypto, with NFTs, not everything is a nail. And so I think one of the core elements what we do is we help our clients understand where is really value in a use case and what's the right solution rate. And Web3 may very well be one very good one, but in some cases, you might be better off not doing it on the blockchain because it also has some disadvantages. One example where it offers a lot of benefits is a venture we built with Digital Ventures called OpenSC. It is a essentially blockchain-based solution to track supply chains. So they started out with the use case of tracking fishing of salmon, so that in the moment where a salmon gets caught in the open sea, the actual location of the trawler gets located on chain. So it can no longer be changed. It is proven is that has that been sourced, that fish been sourced, has been caught in a legal zone. And then it enables you to track end-to-end every step of the supply chain until it is in the fridge in the supermarket. And they have now expanded it even to coffee, so that when you put in your capsule into your coffee machine, you can scan a QR code and you can look on chain at which type of collective that has been solved. And that is a prime example of a use case where blockchain offers really that immutable trust that you cannot reproduce with Web 2.0 technologies.
Right. I mean, blockchain, AI, XR, Metaverse, the opportunity that it's going to open up is going to be so awesome. You gave an example of, how blockchain is solving the problem of supply chain by, tracking from where it is coming to the time it goes into your mouth, when we consume it. So it's so very awesome, and it's going to upend, I think, all possible supply chains. So I'm super excited for this, but obviously there's one side of me which is worried that what happens when the centralized functioning organization so far meets decentralization, because so far almost all of our businesses have worked in a centralized manner, a top-down hierarchical structure. When blockchain says that it's going to be completely decentralized, open, transparent. And it also says that, it's got the potential to take out the intermediaries out of the loop. Now, all of our businesses, like I mentioned, your Web 2.0 businesses, they all function in maximize extraction of value from consumers. While Web 3.0, the ethos is open, decentralization, interoperable, and equitable distribution of wealth. So how do you see businesses open to this ethos? And what would be your advice to enterprise to be ready for this new world of Web 3.0 and decentralization and Metaverse?
That is one of the big questions of this entire new journey we're all on. And I think the jury is still out on how quickly and how significantly we will move into decentralization. Many of these use cases, as I said before, they do not require to be decentralized. You can have virtual reality experiences that you can do in a server client type of architecture. You don't need to run it on blockchain. And even if you use blockchain, there are also now more and more consortia coming up that create private blockchains because they don't want to have a permissionless blockchain that is fully public. So there's still a lot of innovation going on, a lot of test and try. I think a company needs to think also about the opportunities that lie in there. And you mentioned the topic of organizations. There is now, through blockchain and decentralization, the possibility to create DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, where essentially it allows you to cut through a traditional hierarchical organization where people have to be employed with significant amounts of their time and have to work at only one company. And a post can become a stakeholder and actually an owner of a DAO and can contribute in individualized shapes and forms. And an organization could think of, maybe not from the beginning for their entire business model, but for example, for sourcing outside innovation, for designs, for projects, for even some new ideas, they could think of participating or even creating a DAO which allows others to participate in and source this outside in. And I think if there is one good advice is everybody should start testing this out. Yeah, we are so early days. I think either if you are a private person, a student, a company, you should start trying this out. Buy some NFTs, maybe not the ones for 40 million, but some small ones. Engage in the community, see what's happening there, open a wallet, maybe try out some virtual reality experiences. It is just crazy how innovation is going on. And as a company, do some pilots and test it out. And as you are testing it out, you will see what the potential is for some of your use cases.
Right. I think that's the only way to explore these new technologies, get your hands dirty. And you also mentioned, these decentralized autonomous organization, DAOs. I mean, you could leverage these, but yes, I mean, in the initial, right now the DAOs, it's still not matured, and these organizations which will eventually be run by code and possibly have humans in the loop, doing the governance consensus. That the other side of the conversation is obviously that it's gonna be awesome for these organizations. It'll save you a lot of money. But the other side of the conversation is that it does also take out the humans from the loop. So that also the automation part is also a conversation which I think we should be having a conversation globally, because it's not just these DAOs, it's artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. The digitization of the world with Internet of Things and so on and so forth has the potential of take more and more people out of the loop, and more code and more AI, more machine learning into offices for automations, for better products and services. Now about the advice, because there are a lot of these small medium enterprises here in India and around the world would want to get into Metaverse or Web 3.0, and they're waiting. What would be the strategy? How would they get in? I mean, you said that, I mean, the best is to get your hands dirty. But as something specific, is there any specific advice to startups or enterprise on how they can leverage the opportunity of the Metaverse?
So I think, and that's also, by the way, how we run our strategy projects, is step number one is you need to understand these technologies. You need to learn about them. You need to try them out. And maybe you have somebody who can help you understand this, but I think but there's also great resources where you can read up or find people that can help you. And you need to do it in a de-averaged way. You need to understand crypto separate from NFTs, separate from virtual augmented reality, separate from these meta worlds, and separate from digital economy. So try to really understand how this works, and you need to try it out by getting your hands dirty, as you said, Eddie. The second key element, and that's not so simple, is translating technology into use cases and say, what are relevant use cases? And you might decide to have like an approach where you go broad first. You have ideas, or you have somebody helping you identify ideas, and then you compress and say, which ones am I going to be prioritizing? And I think what is clear here is you need to have a portfolio. This is so early that no consultant in his right mind should tell you that this is one thing you should only do. I think you always need to have a portfolio, right? And so you prioritize according to your strategic goals. Is it to create revenue? Is it to have more loyal customers? Is it to maybe save costs on your internal operations? What is your goal? And then you select the use case for it. And then you need you need to start doing things, and you need to also be willing to invest some money, and being cognizant of the fact that not all of these 3, 4, 5 things you're doing are going to be successful, and then you need to revisit because the space is developing so fast.
Right. What are your views on India's market opportunity, and is there any partnership? Because you mentioned about True Ventures. Are you looking at India?
I think India has a tremendous opportunity ahead of itself. And I think when I look at it, and also the types of conversations I'm having with countries around the world, is specifically for India, I think on one side, you have tremendous opportunity to use these new technologies to leapfrog and advance India as a nation with benefits for its citizens and the companies in India. But at the same time, the same way India has become a powerhouse for the IT industry globally, you could leverage that potential and become a powerhouse for Web 3.0 and really identify what could be capabilities and assets that are being built up in India, not only for India as a country, but to actually power the global metaverse.
Right. If there are companies who want to reach out to you, where can they reach out?
So they can very, very happily reach out to me either on LinkedIn under my profile, or also reach me under my email. I'm very happy to post my contact details under this video.
Tibor, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. We're sitting in an exciting point of time, the culmination or the convergence of AR, VR, MR, AI, blockchain, NFTs, cryptocurrency, the metaverse. I think it's going to open up so many opportunities. I don't think if a single business is going to be untouched. All of these businesses will be upended, and the value be adding onto it, and the money you'll be saving for those business is going to be humongous. And I'm super excited for it. My last question to you: if you had to paint a picture of metaverse, Web 3.0, or in the next 10 years, in this coming 10 years. What are the transformations, or what are the business opportunity that you are really excited and looking forward for?
Wow, that's a tough one. But what are some things that really excite me personally? I think one core thing that excites me is that we will get rid of geography as a factor. We are already now seeing that in the labs of some of these players, avatars are being created that are indistinguishable from the real world, which means that you no longer are restricted by the fact in which country you have been born on this planet. And this just opens up so much opportunity for people around the world to be truly part of that global village and of corporations or DAOs around the world going forward. And I think the other thing is I do see in the end also risks with these new technologies, but at the end of the day, they are technologies. Humans, as Gary Vaynerchuk said, they're going to transport the good and the bad of humanity into these technologies. But I do believe that through blockchain, we will actually see a renaissance of really putting data, identity, assets back into the hands of people, and corporations need to enable these decentralized use cases. So I'm quite optimistic.
Tibor, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Governments, organizations, enterprise need to be a little bit more open, from the earlier monetization model of extracting value from consumers, maximum extracting value. I think the values got to be distributed equally amongst everyone, because I think with the metaverse, everyone gets to play a role to lay the building blocks of this world. And you raised an awesome point. I think the geography is becoming history, and we're getting into a global village, and the opportunity is humongous. If people understand the value, I think we'll truly get into a decentralized open space. So really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. To my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you, Tibor. Really appreciate this.
Thank you.